The stars were silent. They had been silent for 300 years. Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the UHSF Indomitable and stared at the dead displays. No radio signals. No transmissions. No voices calling across the darkness between worlds. Just empty black space and distant suns that might as well have been painted on a wall. He was 42 years old and had spent 15 of those years hiding in this asteroid field, keeping his ship quiet, keeping his crew alive. "Commander, we have movement in Sector 7, Ji-won said from the tactical station. Her voice was barely above a whisper, even though they were deep inside the ship. Everyone whispered now. It had become a habit. Hyun-woo moved to her console. The screen showed a faint heat signature drifting between the asteroids. Too small to be a Dominion patrol ship. Too erratic to be a scheduled supply run from one of the other hiding spots. Could be debris, Dae-Hyun offered from engineering. The man looked tired. They all looked tired. Maybe a rock with a warm core. Rocks don't change direction, Ji-won said, pointing at the track history. That thing is under power. Minimal, but it's definitely propelled. Hyun-woo felt the familiar weight settle on his shoulders. Every decision out here could mean life or death. Investigate and risk exposure. Ignore it and possibly miss something important. He looked at the signature again. Something about the way it moved seemed desperate. Bring us around. Quiet thrusters only. If it's a trap, we run. The Indomitable moved like a ghost through the asteroid field. They had gotten good at this over the years. The ship was old, held together by spare parts, and Dae-Hyun's genius with a welding torch, but it could move silently when it needed to dot. As they got closer, the object resolved on their screens. A courier pod. Human design. Damaged badly, leaking atmosphere from a dozen puncture wounds. Life signs? Hyun-woo asked. One, weak, Ji-won replied. Whoever's in there won't last much longer. Bring it in. The bay doors opened silently, and the pod drifted inside. Hyun-woo was already moving, Ji-won right behind him. By the time they reached the bay, Dae-Hyun had the pod cracked open. A young man spilled out onto the deck, gasping. His flight suit was torn and blood-stained. He couldn't have been more than 25. His eyes were wild, unfocused. Get Myung down here now, Hyun-woo ordered, kneeling beside the young man. Easy. You're safe. You made it. The young man grabbed Hyun-woo's arm with surprising strength. They found it, he wheezed. Blood flecked his lips. The silence engine. We know where it is. Hyun-woo's blood went cold. What did you say? My name is Tae-young. Proxima resistance. Each word seemed to cost him. We found it. The source. The reason for the silence. We can break them. Then his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. Mi-young arrived minutes later with her medical kit. She was in her 50s, had been a civilian doctor before the fall of Earth, and was the closest thing to family Hyun-woo had left. She worked quickly, scanner in hand, injecting stabilizers. He'll live, she said finally. But he's been through hell. Radiation exposure, internal bleeding, dehydration. He's been in that pod for at least a week. Can you wake him? Give him a few hours. Whatever he has to say, it'll wait that long. But Hyun-woo couldn't wait. He went to the pod and searched it himself. There was a data chip sealed in a radiation-proof case. His hands shook slightly as he pulled it out. In his quarters, he loaded the chip into his private terminal. What he saw made him sit down hard. Maps, coordinates, surveillance images of a massive structure in the galactic core. Technical readouts that meant nothing to him, but would probably mean everything to Dae-Hyun. And a video file. He opened it. A woman's face appeared. She looked exhausted, but determined. If you're watching this, then Tae-yang made it. Or someone found his body and the pod. Either way, this information needs to spread. My name is Borum. I was a scientist for the Dominion Collective before I understood what they were really doing. She glanced off-screen nervously. The Great Silence isn't natural. It's not even a policy they enforce with patrols and fear. It's a machine. They call it the Silence Engine. It's a quantum suppression field generator the size of a small moon. It actively dampens all electromagnetic communications across 50,000 light years. Radio, FTL comes, everything. That's why we can't coordinate. That's why every resistance movement fails alone. Borum leaned closer to the camera. But we found it. And if we can destroy it, every species in the suppression zone will suddenly be able to communicate freely. Every rebellion that's been waiting in the dark will ignite simultaneously. The Dominion can't fight a united galaxy. The video ended. Hyan Wu sat in the darkness of his quarters for a long time. 12 years ago, he had been a captain in the United Human Space Force, commanding a destroyer in the defense of Earth. He had watched the Dominion fleet arrive, had watched humanity's desperate last stand, had received the order to retreat, to survive, to keep fighting. He had obeyed. Sometimes he wished he hadn't. There were only 7 human ships left that he knew of. 7 ships hiding in asteroid fields and nebulas and dead systems, running on silent, waiting for a miracle that would never come. His crew numbered 43 souls. They had children born in hiding who had never heard their own voices echo, who thought whispers were normal. And now this young man Tae-yang showed up with a fairy tale, a magic engine that caused all their suffering, a single target that could change everything. It was too good to be true. It had to be. But what if it wasn't? Commander? Ji-won's voice on the intercom. Tae-yang is awake. Miang says he's stable enough to talk. Hyan Wu stood. I'm on my way. Tae-yang was sitting up in the medical bay, looking pale but alert. His eyes found Hyan Wu immediately. You saw the data. I did? Then you know what we have to do. I know what you think we have to do, Hyan Wu said carefully. That doesn't mean it's possible. The Dominion has held the galaxy for 300 years. They don't make mistakes. They don't leave weaknesses. This isn't a weakness. It's their foundation. Tae-yang's voice grew stronger. And it's not just us. There are others. Ships, cells, resistance groups across 100 systems. They're all waiting for a signal. Borum made copies of this data. It's spreading. People know now. And what do they expect us to do about it? Tae-yang met his eyes. Fight. Together. For the first time in 300 years. Actually fight together. Hyan Wu looked at Ji-won, at Myung, at Dae-Hyan who had joined them. They were all watching him, waiting for him to decide. 15 years of hiding. 15 years of running. 15 years of watching his crew grow old in silence. He thought of Earth, of the last transmission cutting off mid-word, of his daughter's voice asking him when he would come home. Tell me everything, Hyan Wu said, and then we'll see if we can wake up the galaxy. Outside the ship, the stars remained silent. But not for much longer. Tae-yang talked for 3 hours. He told them about the Proxima resistance, about how they had intercepted a damaged Dominion supply ship and found its navigation logs, about Borum, the defector, who recognized the coordinates and understood what they meant, about the 16 ships that had tried to verify the information and the only 3 that had returned. The silence engine sits in a cleared zone near the galactic core, Tae-yang explained, pointing at a holographic star map in the briefing room. The entire senior staff had gathered. It's surrounded by radiation storms and gravitational anomalies. Natural defenses. But there's an approach vector here that's stable. How many Dominion ships? Ji-Wan asked. Unknown. But the facility itself is massive. It would need significant protection. Bei-Hyan studied the technical specifications that Borum had included. This is quantum suppression technology. I've never seen anything like it. The power requirements alone would need a stellar core for fuel. There's a captured dwarf star at the center of the structure, Tae Yang confirmed. The engine basically feeds on it. Hyan Wu had been quiet, listening. Now he spoke. Even if all of this is true, we have one aging warship and 43 people. What exactly do you expect us to do? Contact the others. Borum's data package includes encrypted relay points for other resistance cells. The Proxima fleet is already preparing. There are human ships in the Kepler Belt, Tau Ceti, and New Osaka. There are alien resistance groups, too. The Whisper Folk, the Iron Sails merchants, all waiting for someone to coordinate them. Coordinate them with what? Hyan Wu stood. We can't broadcast. We can't send messages. The moment we break silence, every Dominion patrol in 100 light years will converge on our position. Then we use what we have. Miang surprised everyone by speaking up. Physical couriers. Like Tae Yang. We send the data by hand. That could take months. Then we start now, she said firmly. Because in 300 years, no one has had a real target before. No one has had hope. The word hung in the air. Hope. Such a dangerous thing. Hyan Wu looked around the table at his people. They had followed him for 15 years on the promise of survival. Now they were looking at him with something else in their eyes. Something he hadn't seen in a long time. Ji-Wan, pull up everything we have on the outer colonies. I want to know which ones are still active, which ones might have ships. Bei-Hyan, see if we can make more courier pods. Fast ones. Miang, work with Tae Yang on that contact list. If we're really doing this, we need to know who we're working with. What about Yo? Commander? Ji-Wan asked. I'm going to figure out how to coordinate an attack when we can't talk to each other. Over the following weeks, the Indomitable became a hub of quiet activity. They manufactured 6 courier pods from spare parts and scavenged materials. Each pod was loaded with a copy of Borum's data and sent to different coordinates on the contact list. Hyan Wu drafted plans. He had been a naval officer before the silence, and he remembered old tactics from Earth's ancient wars. Battles fought when communication was limited to flags and lights. Coordinated movements based on timing rather than constant updates. The first response came 3 weeks later. A pod arrived from Captain Yunbi, commanding a flotilla of stealth ships in the Kepler system. Her message was brief. 15 ships. Ready to fight. Send coordinates. Then another. And another. The pods trickled in over 2 months. Each one brought more allies. More ships. More people who had been waiting in the dark for something to believe in. Not everyone was convinced. A pod from New Osaka carried a message declining involvement. Too risky. Too impossible. Hyan Wu couldn't blame them. He had those same doubts every night when he couldn't sleep, but others were ready. A response came from the Whisper Folk, a telepathic species that had nearly gone mad from enforced isolation. Their representative, speaking through a translator, said simply, "We will scream with you." The Iron Sails sent word that they could provide transport and logistics. They had been running black market routes through the silent zones for decades, and new paths. The Dominion didn't watch. 3 months after Tae Yang's arrival, a new pod drifted into their bay. This one wasn't human design. The seal carried a mark that made Tae Yang go pale. "That's a Dominion seal," he whispered. They opened it carefully, weapons ready. Inside was a single data chip and a handwritten note in Standard. "I am Borum. I need to speak with whoever commands this effort. I can get you close to the engine, but we must meet in person. These are coordinates. Come alone or don't come at all. It's a trap, Ji-Wan said immediately. Maybe, Haiyan-Wu agreed. But she's the one who started this. And if she can really get us close to that thing, we need her. I'll go with you, Tae-Yang offered. No, you've done enough. This is my risk to take. Miang grabbed his arm. You're not going alone. I am. If it's a trap, the Indomitable needs its command structure intact. You're all staying here. That's an order. The coordinates led to a dead station in an abandoned system. Haiyan-Wu took a shuttle, running completely dark, and docked with the derelict structure. His sidearm was loaded and ready. He found Borum in what used to be the station's observation deck. She was older than her video suggested, maybe 60, with gray hair and tired eyes. She wasn't armed. Commander Haiyan-Wu, she said. Thank you for coming. You have 30 seconds to convince me this isn't a trap. If it were a trap, the Dominion fleet would already be here. I defected 4 months ago. They've been hunting me ever since. I reached out to the Proxima Resistance and gave them everything I had. Then I went dark because staying in contact would have compromised them. Why come back now? Because I've been monitoring the quiet channels. I know the Resistance is gathering, and I know you're going to fail without me. She pulled up a holographic display. The silence engine has defenses you don't know about. Automated systems. Quantum shields. I helped design them. You'll need me to get through. Why should I trust you? Borum met his eyes. Because I have a daughter on one of the silenced worlds. Because I spent 20 years building the thing that keeps her voiceless. And because I'll spend whatever time I have left tearing it down. Haiyan-Wu studied her for a long moment. Then he made his decision. We're gathering a fleet. It'll take time. Can you stay hidden that long? I've made it this far, and welcome to the Resistance. They returned to the Indomitable together. When Borum saw the ship and its patchwork repairs, she actually smiled. This is what's going to break the Dominion. This beautiful disaster? Don't insult my ship, Haiyan said protectively. Over the next weeks, Borum integrated into the crew. She and Haiyan pored over the engine schematics, identifying weak points. She worked with Ji-Wan on defensive patterns. She even helped in the galley, peeling vegetables alongside people who had every reason to hate her. Slowly, trust built. The courier pods kept arriving. More confirmations. More ships pledging to join. Haiyan-Wu started to see the shape of something impossible taking form. Not an army. Not yet. But the beginning of one. 5 months after Tae-Yang's arrival, they had commitments from 300 ships. It wasn't enough to fight the Dominion head-on. But it might be enough to reach the engine. Haiyan-Wu called a meeting of his senior staff. It's time, he said. Send out the final coordinates. Tell everyone to converge on the Crimson Veil Nebula. We gather the fleet, we plan the attack, and we wake up this galaxy. Ji-Wan actually smiled. About time, Commander. The courier pods launched into the darkness, carrying a message that would change everything. The silence ends. Join us. The Crimson Veil Nebula hung in space like a wound in reality. Clouds of ionized gas glowed red and purple, dense enough to hide a fleet and thick enough to scatter most scanning attempts. It was the perfect gathering place for an impossible mission. The first ships began arriving, 2 weeks after the final call went out. Haiyan-Wu watched them appear on sensors one by one, each vessel different from the last. Human frigates, alien cruisers, modified cargo haulers with weapons welded to their hulls. Every ship told a story of survival and desperation. Captain Yunbi's flotilla arrived in formation, 15 stealth ships moving in perfect silence. She came aboard the Indomitable personally, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and scarred hands. "You're the one who started all this noise," she said, gripping Haiyan Wu's hand. "About time someone did. How many can you confirm from your sector?" "I brought 15. I know of 8 more that didn't want to commit until they saw this was real. They'll come once word spreads that we're actually gathering." By the end of the first month, 200 ships filled the nebula. They maintained strict communication silence, using short-range light signals and physical couriers to coordinate. Haiyan Wu established a command structure, bringing together the various captains and resistance leaders. The Whisper Folk arrived in organic vessels that looked grown rather than built. Their representative, who asked to be called Su Jin in standard for easier communication, explained through a translator device that her people could still communicate telepathically at close range. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. "We have been alone inside our own minds for so long," Su Jin's translator said. "To fight alongside others again, even in silence, brings us peace." The Iron Sails merchants brought more than ships. They brought supplies, stolen Dominion technology, and intelligence on patrol routes. Their leader, a grizzled captain named Te Haiyan, spread maps across the briefing table. "These are the safe routes to the galactic core." Emphasis on safe, being relative. "The radiation alone will kill half your crews if you're not prepared." "We'll prepare," Haiyan Wu said. The fleet kept growing. 300 ships, then 350. Not all of them were warships. Some were colony vessels whose people wanted to fight. Some were medical ships offering support. Some were ancient freighters held together by prayer and determination. Haiyan Wu spent his days coordinating training exercises. The fleet had to learn to move as one without real-time communication. They practiced formations using pre-arranged patterns and timing. Attack runs coordinated by synchronized chronometers. Defensive maneuvers triggered by visual signals. Jiwan ran tactical drills until crews could execute complex patterns in their sleep. "If we can't talk during the battle, we need to move like we share one mind," she insisted. Te Haiyan worked with engineers from across the fleet to standardize what weapons and defenses they could. Missiles were reprogrammed. Shield frequencies harmonized. Every ship that could mount a weapon did so. Warham continued studying the Silence Engine's defenses, working with Su Jin and several other scientists who had joined the cause. "The outer defensive ring will be automated," she explained at a command briefing. "Turrets, mines, patrol drones. Then there's the Dominion fleet. We estimate at least 500 warships permanently stationed there." The numbers made everyone quiet. They had less than 400 ships, and most of those weren't proper warships. "What about the engine itself?" Yunbi asked. "The exterior is nearly impenetrable, but I helped design a maintenance access port on the northern hemisphere. It's small, heavily shielded, but vulnerable to concentrated fire. If we can breach it, a boarding party could reach the core." "How big a boarding party?" Haiyan Wu asked. 20 people. Maybe 30 if you pack tight. The internal corridors weren't designed for defense. They never expected anyone to get that far. Planning sessions stretched into the night. They divided the fleet into 3 groups. Alpha Group, led by Yunbi, would engage the Dominion fleet head-on, drawing their attention. Beta Group, commanded by Haiyan Wu aboard the Indomitable, would make the run to the engine itself. Gamma Group would hold the escape route open. It was Myong who pointed out the obvious problem. "We'll take heavy casualties. Even if this works, half the fleet might not make it back." "I know," Haiyan Wu said quietly. "Everyone knows." They came anyway. 2 months into the gathering, a damaged ship limped into the nebula. It was a Dominion patrol vessel, hull breached and leaking atmosphere. Haiyan Wu ordered it brought in carefully, weapons trained on it. When they forced the airlocks, they found a surprise. The crew had mutinied. 7 Dominion soldiers, 3 humans and 4 aliens, who had killed their commanding officer and fled. Their leader, a human named Hana, fell to her knees when she saw Haiyan Wu. "We've been listening to your resistance chatter. We want to fight with you. Please, we can't do this anymore. We can't enforce the silence anymore." Haiyan Wu looked at Ji-Wan, who was already suspicious. "How do we know you're not spies?" "You don't," Hannah admitted. "But we brought intelligence. Fleet movements. Security codes. Everything we could steal. And if you don't trust us, lock us up until the battle. Just let us fight when the time comes." They were locked up, but their intelligence proved valuable. Borum verified the security codes. Tae-Hyan confirmed the fleet movements matched what his scouts had seen. After a week, Haiyan Wu made a decision. Give them a ship. Put them in Gamma Group. If they betray us, they'll be the first to die. If they're genuine, we need every gun we can get. Training continued. The fleet became more cohesive. Ships learned to anticipate each other's movements. Crews bonded during joint operations. The Whisper folk started teaching meditation techniques to help with the stress. The Iron Sails merchants organized quiet music performances with instruments. Instead of electronic sound, community formed in the silence. 3 months in, they were as ready as they would ever be. 412 ships. 16,000 people, human and alien alike, all committed to a single desperate strike. Haiyan Wu called a final assembly of all ship captains. They gathered in the largest cargo bay aboard a converted colony ship. Over 200 leaders standing in tight formation. "I won't lie to you," Haiyan Wu began, his voice carrying in the enclosed space. "Most of us won't survive this. The Dominion is stronger. They have more ships, better weapons, and they've never been beaten. If we do this, we're probably going to die." He paused, looking at the faces around him. Human, alien, young and old. All united by one thing. But we'll die speaking. We'll die free. And if we succeed, every world in this galaxy will wake up tomorrow able to talk again. To coordinate. To resist together. The Dominion has ruled for 300 years because they isolated us. Made us fight alone. That ends now. He held up his fist. For 300 years, they made us whisper. Today, we roar. The cargo bay erupted in silent applause. Fists raised. Faces determined. The fleet prepared to move. Ships checked their systems one last time. Crews said goodbye to loved ones. Letters were written to people they might never see again. Tae-Yang found Haiyan Wu on the bridge of the Indomitable as the final preparations completed. "Thank you," he said simply, "for believing me, for doing this. Thank me if we succeed. Even if we don't, you gave everyone hope. That's worth something." The fleet formed up in departure formation. 412 ships, organized in their 3 groups, synchronized chronometers set. The route to the galactic core was programmed. The attack patterns memorized. Haiyan Wu sat in his command chair and looked at his crew. Ji-Wan at tactical. Tae-Hyan at engineering. Myung at medical coordination. Borum at the special systems console. Faces he had known for years, trusting him one more time. "All ships," he transmitted via hardline to the group leaders. "This is it. Maintain silence. Follow the plan. And remember why we're doing this." The fleet moved as one, slipping out of the crimson veil and into the darkness beyond. Hundreds of ships disappearing into faster-than-light travel, heading toward the galactic core, heading toward the silence. Engine, heading toward their destiny. Journey to the galactic core took 2 weeks of hard flying through regions. No sane pilot would enter voluntarily. radiation storms that fried unshielded electronics, gravitational eddies that could tear a ship apart, rogue asteroids moving at relativistic speeds. They lost 12 ships before they ever reached the battle. The fleet maintained absolute silence during the journey. No transmissions. No active sensors, except for the briefest passive sweeps. They moved through the darkness like ghosts, following the routes that Taehyun's merchants had mapped over decades of smuggling runs. Hyun Woo spent those 2 weeks reviewing the battle plan until he could recite it in his sleep. Alpha Group would emerge from FTL first, drawing the Dominion fleet's attention. Beta Group would come in 20 minutes later, using the chaos to make their run. Gamma Group would stay back, ready to cover the retreat. It all depended on timing. Without communication, they had to trust their chronometers and each other. On the 14th day, proximity alarms began pinging. They were approaching the cleared zone around the silence engine. All ships to battle stations. Hyun Woo ordered via hardline to the group leaders. Prepare for FTL exit. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in coordinated waves. First Alpha Group, Yunbi's ships emerging into normal space with weapons hot. Then the rest, spreading out according to the plan. What they saw made everyone fall silent. The silence engine was massive. Not station massive. Not even moon massive. It was a structure the size of a small planet. A dark sphere of metal and energy that pulsed with visible distortions in space around it. It was surrounded by defensive platforms, automated turrets, and a Dominion fleet that stretched across the horizon. 500 warships. Maybe more. All between the Resistance and their target. Dominion fleet is responding, Ji-won reported. They're moving to intercept Alpha Group. On the screens, Yunbi's flotilla was already engaging. Her ships moved in coordinated attack patterns, missiles and energy weapons, lighting up the darkness. The Dominion fleet was bigger, but Yunbi's people were desperate. The space between them became a storm of fire and destruction. Beta Group, begin your approach. Hyun Woo transmitted to his strike force. Gamma Group, hold position and be ready. The Indomitable led 90 ships toward the engine, arcing around the main battle. The route Borum had planned took them through the outer defensive ring. Automated turrets swung toward them, opening fire. Evasive pattern Delta, Hyun Woo ordered. The ships around them moved in synchronized waves, pre-planned maneuvers that let them slip between the worst of the fire. Not all of them made it. A cargo hauler to their port side took a direct hit and exploded silently. Shields at 60%, Hyun reported. Hull integrity holding. They pushed deeper. The engine loomed ahead, its surface crawling with energy. Hyun Woo could feel it in his teeth, a pressure in his skull. The quantum suppression field was strongest here, at the source. There, Borum pointed at the tactical display. The maintenance port. Northern Hemisphere. Grid reference Alpha 7. All beta ships. Focus fire on target coordinates. Hyun Woo transmitted. Concentrate everything you have. 90 ships turned their weapons on a single point on the engine's surface. Missiles streaked across space. Energy beams converged. The combined firepower of the Resistance fleet hammered at the shielded port. At first, nothing happened. The shields absorbed the punishment, glowing brighter with each impact. It's not working, Ji-won said. Keep firing. Behind them, the main battle raged. Alpha Group was being torn apart, but they were doing their job. The Dominion fleet was fully engaged, unable to break away to deal with Beta Group's approach. The Indomitable shuddered as a turret caught them with a grazing shot. Alarms blared. Shield generators 3 and 4 are offline, Hyun reported. Rerouting power. Hyun Woo gripped his command chair. They had one shot at this. One chance. If they couldn't breach the port, Everyone died for nothing. Borum, is there any way to overload the shields? She was already working. If we hit it with a synchronized pulse, all ships firing at exactly the same moment, we might create a resonance cascade. But the timing has to be perfect. We're talking microsecond precision. How do we coordinate that without communication? We can't, unless ... She looked up. Su Jin, can your people link minds with the other captains? The Whisper Folk representative was in the corner of the bridge, monitoring the battle. She turned, her alien features unreadable. At this range, yes. But the effort might kill me. Do it, Haiyan Wu said. Su Jin closed her eyes. Haiyan Wu felt something brush his mind, gentle but insistent. It was like a voice that wasn't a voice, a presence that connected him to dozens of other minds. He could feel the other captains, their fear and determination. Su Jin's translator spoke, her voice strained. I have them. All Beta Group ships. Ready for synchronized firing. Lock weapons on target, Haiyan Wu ordered. Through the link, he felt the other ships responding. Fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Every ship in Beta Group fired simultaneously. 90 weapons platforms, releasing their full payload in perfect synchronization. The shields around the maintenance port turned white-hot. For a moment, nothing happened. Then they shattered. Breach confirmed. Jiwan shouted, "The port is open. Get us in there." The Indomitable burned forward, the few remaining Beta Group ships around them providing covering fire. They slipped through the breach in the shields and slammed against the engine's hull. Magnetic clamps engaged, locking them in place. Su Jin collapsed. Miang was at her side immediately, but the Whisper Folk was still breathing. She's alive. Unconscious, but alive. Boarding party with me, Haiyan Wu ordered. Jiwan Bei Haiyan, you have the bridge. I'm coming with you, Borum said. You'll need me to navigate inside. Haiyan Wu didn't argue. He grabbed his rifle and headed for the airlock. Taeyang was already there with 18 others, the strike team they had assembled for this moment. All volunteers. All knowing they might not come back. They cut through the maintenance port and entered the engine. Inside was a maze of corridors and machinery, all pulsing with that same reality-bending energy. The quantum suppression field was everywhere, making their heads pound and their vision blur. Borum led them deeper. The core is 3 levels down. This way. They encountered automated defense systems, turrets, drones. Fighting through them took precious time and cost lives. A young woman from Tau Ceti took a plasma bolt to the chest and died before Miang could reach her. They kept moving. The corridors opened into a massive chamber. At its center was the core, a sphere of contained energy wrapped around a captive star. It was beautiful and terrible, light that bent wrong, colors that shouldn't exist, and standing in front of it was a single figure in Dominion commander robes. I wondered if anyone would actually make it this far, High Arbiter Velgan said. His voice was calm, almost sad. You must be Commander Haiyan Wu. Your reputation precedes you. Step aside. Haiyan Wu raised his rifle. I can't do that. This engine represents 300 years of peace. Yes, enforced peace. Silent peace. But peace nonetheless. Before the silence, the galaxy was chaos. Species at constant war. Billions dying in conflicts over resources and ideologies. So you decided to mute everyone? I decided to give civilization a chance to breathe. To exist without the constant noise of war and hate. Velgan spread his hands. If you destroy this, the galaxy will tear itself apart again. Maybe, Haiyan Wu admitted. But that's not your choice to make. Or mine. People have the right to speak, even if they use it to argue. Even if they use it to fight. That's naive. Maybe, but I'd rather be naive and free than silenced and safe. He fired. Velgan went down, his expression almost peaceful. The strike team rushed past him to the core. Borum and Daehyun, who had left the ship to join them, planted quantum charges on the containment field. These will cause a cascade collapse, Oren explained. The engine will tear itself apart. The shock wave will propagate across subspace, destroying every component of the suppression field simultaneously. How long do we have? 5 minutes after activation. We need to be far away when this goes off. They set the charges and ran. The corridor seemed longer on the way out. They could hear the structure groaning, feel it beginning to fail. They made it back to the Indomitable with seconds to spare. Go, go, go. Haiyan Wu shouted as he hit the bridge. The ship tore away from the engine's hull, joining what was left of Beta Group in a desperate burn away from the structure. All ships. Retreat at maximum speed, Haiyan Wu transmitted. The engine is about to explode. Behind them, the silence engine began to glow. Brighter and brighter, energy building to catastrophic levels. Then it detonated. The explosion was beyond description. A wave of quantum energy that rippled across space, destroying the Dominion defensive platforms, scattering their fleet, and spreading outward at faster-than-light speeds. And as it spread, the silence lifted. The first thing Haiyan Wu heard was static. Beautiful. Chaotic, magnificent static. For 300 years, the communications channels had been dead. Now they roared with life. Radio transmissions. FTL broadcasts. Voices calling across the darkness after centuries of enforced quiet. We're receiving signals, Jiwan said, her voice shaking. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. From every direction. The bridge speakers crackled to life. A human voice speaking standard with an Earth accent. This is Earth Resistance Command to any vessels. The silence has lifted. We are free. Repeat, we are free. Miang was crying. Daehyun was laughing. Tae-Yang had his hands over his face. All ships, this is Haiyan Wu. He transmitted on open channels for the first time in 15 years. The silence engine is destroyed. Spread the word. Coordinate with local resistance. The Dominion is broken. The response was overwhelming. Ships across the fleet were broadcasting, sharing the news, coordinating for the first time. The Whisper Folk were singing telepathically, their joy resonating through anyone nearby. The Iron Sails merchants were already organizing supply lines. Commander, we're being hailed, Jiwan said. By Yunbi. Her face appeared on screen, bloodied but smiling. We did it. We actually did it. What's your status? Lost half my ships. But the Dominion fleet is scattering. They can't coordinate either. They're running. Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out. Resistance cells that had been waiting in hiding suddenly erupted into action. With communication restored, they could coordinate, share information, work together. The Dominion, stripped of their greatest weapon, began to collapse. It took 3 days for the Indomitable to limp back to the Crimson Veil Nebula. Half the fleet made it. 200 ships from the original 412. 8,000 survivors from the 16,000 who had departed. The casualties were devastating. But they had won. The nebula became a temporary base as the fleet regrouped. Ships were repaired. Wounded were treated. The dead were honored. Haiyan Wu stood in the medical bay, looking at the list of names. So many people who had trusted him, who had followed him into hell and hadn't come back. Yunbi was among the dead. Her ship had been destroyed covering the retreat, buying time for others to escape. Hana and her defector crew had died holding off a Dominion. Assault on Gamma Group. Su Jin had survived, but would never fully recover from the telepathic strain. You gave them what they wanted, Miang said, joining him. A chance to fight. To matter. Was it worth it? Ask them. She gestured to the view screen, showing the nebula. Ships were celebrating, transmitting openly, talking to each other without fear. They think it was. Over the following weeks, the galaxy transformed. The Dominion remnants were hunted down or surrendered. Some, like the soldiers Hana had led, defected and joined the new order. Others fled to the far reaches of space. Haiyan Wu received messages from across known space. Earth had emerged from hiding. Colonies thought lost were thriving. Alien species were making contact, sharing their own stories of resistance and survival. A galactic council was proposed. Representatives from hundreds of species, gathering to build something new. 5 months after the battle, Haiyan Wu stood on Earth for the first time in 12 years. The planet was scarred, but alive. Cities were rebuilding. People were talking, arguing, celebrating. He visited a memorial being built in orbit. A massive structure that would list the names of everyone who had died during the Great Silence, and everyone who had died ending it out at the top. Engraved in letters of light was a single line. They made us whisper. We chose to roar. Jiwan found him there. She had taken command of the Indomitable, leading recovery operations throughout human space. The Council wants to see you, she said. They're talking about making you some kind of admiral. I'm not interested. I told them you'd say that. She smiled. What are you interested in? Haiyan Wu looked down at Earth, at the lights spreading across the surface. Transmissions and broadcasts filling the space around it. The planet was loud and messy, and chaotic. It was perfect. I want to go home, he said. Find out if there's anything left of my old life. Maybe meet my grandchildren if my daughter survived. Maybe just sit somewhere quiet and listen to people talk. After 300 years of silence, you want quiet? The good kind of quiet. The kind where people can make noise if they want to, but choose not to. Choice. That's what we fought for. They stood together, watching Earth turn below them. Across the galaxy, species were learning to talk to each other again. Old conflicts were reigniting, yes. But so were old friendships. Trade resumed. Culture spread. The messines of freedom replaced the order of oppression. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was theirs. Tae Yang joined them, walking with a cane from his injuries, but alive. The Proxima colonies want to name their new capital after you. Name it after the people who died. They're the real heroes. They want to name things after them too. There's going to be a lot of memorials. Good. We should never forget what silence costs. The three of them stood at the memorial, looking at the names. So many lost. So much pain. But also so much courage. So much hope. In the distance, a ship was launching, broadcasting its departure for anyone to hear. Another ship answered, confirming clearance. Routine communication. Normal traffic. The most beautiful sound Haiyan Wu had ever heard. What now, Commander? Jiwan asked. Haiyan Wu smiled. For the first time in years, he didn't feel the weight of command. Didn't feel the burden of keeping everyone alive. Now we live, he said. We talk, we rebuild. We remember. And we never let anyone silence us again. Above them, the memorial completed its construction. The names glowed in the darkness, visible from Earth's surface. A reminder of what had been lost and what had been won. The galaxy was no longer silent. It sang.